My name is Evelyn Blake. I used to be the wife of a man respected by everyone in town, until the day I walked into his engagement party with another woman, held inside the very house I had designed. She waved my house key, smiling like I was nothing more than a ghost from his past. People were stunned. And I smiled too as I set the envelope holding our divorce papers and an asset freeze order in the center of the table, right as they raised their glasses to toast their new love. Have you ever been pushed out of the life you built with your own hands? Share how that felt in the comments. And if you believe women who've been betrayed deserve a voice, hit like and subscribe to this channel, because what happened after that party, that's the part they'll never forget. I used to be an architect. Not the Pinterest mood board makeover kind. I designed real homes, from blueprints and load-bearing calculations to concealed piping and stress-tested materials. I loved it. The feeling of watching a brick wall become a home with warm lights and children's laughter. Then I married Owen. He had big dreams, starting his own real estate investment firm, quitting corporate life, becoming a leader. I believed in it. Believed so much that I boxed up my entire portfolio, turned down calls from 3 major projects, and started playing the role of the woman behind the successful man. Just a few years, Owen once promised. Then you'll get back to your passion. But right now, I need someone who believes in me. I was that someone. I stood by him in those early meetings at makeshift cafes, revised pitch decks with him at midnight, sat at our kitchen table calculating every single line of that bank loan application. Then we bought our first lot. I designed that house. A farmhouse-style villa with a sloped roof, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the backyard, an open living room, and a second-floor bedroom that caught the morning sun perfectly. I still remember the day Owen walked into it after it was finished. "I never dreamed I'd live in something this beautiful," he whispered, hugging me from behind. Noah was 8 at the time, racing around the backyard, yelling about building a treehouse. Everything felt complete. But something changed. I can't pinpoint when. Maybe it was when Owen started taking calls outside instead of in the living room. Or when he stopped asking simple things like, "Did you sleep okay?" Maybe it was when he came home after midnight saying, "I had a meeting with the investment group." Those late meetings started happening more often. I once smelled an unfamiliar perfume in his car. A scent I didn't use, didn't recognize. At first I brushed it off. Told myself it was probably a female colleague from the elevator, or maybe a new receptionist at the office. Then one day I noticed a new key in the tray near the front door. Bright gold, freshly cut, unnumbered, no keychain attached. When I asked, Owen said, "I had a copy made for the cleaning crew. You know how busy I am now. It's easier if they can just let themselves in." The strange thing was, I had never once seen anyone cleaning the house. It wasn't that I didn't want to keep asking. It was that the more Owen answered, the more it felt like he was speaking to a stranger. "You don't understand me like you used to. You question everything. I'm tired of having to explain myself all the time." Each sentence hit like a quiet punch. I started staying silent. Not out of submission, but to listen. To observe. The cracks in our seemingly perfect life started showing. In the new password on his phone, the video calls cut short, the texts arriving in the middle of dinner. Even Noah started to ask, "Mom, why is Dad so grumpy with you lately?" "Maybe he's stressed from work," I replied. I had gotten used to protecting Owen's image, even when he never did the same for me. One evening, I sat alone at the dinner table, under the soft pendant light I had chosen with so much care. The stew I'd made was still steaming. Owen had texted, "Caught up in a meeting, don't wait up." 5th time that month. I lifted my glass of wine and looked around the house I once called a home. Every brick, every curtain, every light fixture was a piece of my soul. But the person living in it was no longer part of me. I left for a 3-day work trip to Portland, a long-dreamed-of architectural conference, though this time I arrived with a heavy heart. On the second night, I sat in the hotel room and opened my laptop to check the smart home system back at the house. Everything was connected: lights, thermostat, and even the doorbell camera. Owen once said he'd disabled the recording feature because we didn't need it anymore. I never listened. And that is what preserved the footage I'll never forget. A small screen popped up, showing Owen at the door with a tall blonde woman in a beige coat, holding a large tote bag and a bouquet of flowers. She leaned in and kissed him right in front of the camera. Owen opened the door. She walked in first like the house was hers. I didn't need to hear a name. I knew who she was. Jenna Whitmore. A name that used to be nothing more than office gossip. That she'd transferred from the southern branch. That she was unusually close to the boss. That she used to model before becoming a personal assistant. That her smile wasn't exactly HR approved. I had ignored those whispers. But now, I was watching her walk into my house. The next day I didn't replay the video. I stayed in the hotel room printing transaction records from my backup account. The credit card under my name that I'd once handed to Owen for household convenience. The first line made me grip the mouse tighter. Bella Boutique, $2,950. I knew that store. Riverwalk. High-end bridal gowns. Right below it, West Elm, $3,200. Anthropology Home, $680. Maison Flora. Deposit for wedding decor, $1,500. I checked the transaction time, 3 hours after I boarded my flight. It wasn't the money that broke me. It was what each transaction meant. My husband's mistress had used my money to shop for her wedding dress. And not only that, they were planning their wedding inside the house I had designed. Every brick, every table surface, every detail I had chosen was becoming the backdrop for their celebration. I came home that Friday afternoon. From the outside the house looked the same. But the moment I stepped inside I felt the difference. A cloying perfume that wasn't mine. The sofa rearranged. New cream-colored pillows with gold trim. Small things may be unnoticeable to others, but I was the one who built that home. I noticed every change. On the kitchen counter was a note stuck to a bottle of wine. Owen, don't forget the 3 p.m. appointment with the event planner. I picked this white for the ceremony. J. I remained in that kitchen, unmoving like the cold had crept into my bones and stayed. I went upstairs to the bedroom. My closet had been moved. There were a few women's items hanging beside my clothes. Lace dresses, high heels with tags still on, a bottle of expensive perfume sitting on the vanity. Hers. The pillows on the bed were still indented. Maybe they'd left not long before. I opened the bottom drawer. That's where I kept the wooden box with my old work files, a few photos of Noah, and a student notebook from college. The box was still there. But something new had been placed inside. A handwritten card in violet ink. Thank you for leaving everything behind. I promise to cherish all the things you once had. This house was no longer a place I could call home. It had become a battleground. And I knew, sometimes, the woman who stays silent in the shadows is the one holding the real power first. I tried to keep everything quiet, at least for the first few days after returning. Not because I was scared, but because I still couldn't believe I had stepped into a new reality. One where everything I thought was solid had turned out to be a lie wrapped in sweetness. I thought the first person I could confide in would be Rachel. We'd been friends for over 15 years. Our kids were born the same year, and we'd co-hosted birthday parties for Noah and her daughter for nearly a decade. There was a time I even held the spare key to Rachel's house when her husband was on long business trips. I used to believe that if anything ever went wrong in my marriage, she would be the first to tell me the truth. But when I called, Rachel's voice had a strange hesitation. Evelyn, that thing, I actually heard some rumors at Owen's company. But I wasn't sure. I thought, if you found out, it would hurt too much, so I didn't want to bring it up. I held the phone and stared at the screen like I could look through it straight into her eyes. So you knew? Since when? Rachel's voice softened. About a month ago. I saw them at the company's New Year party. Jenna stood next to Owen the whole time. I asked him about it and he said she was a very helpful assistant. I froze. A whole month. In that month, Rachel still came to my house for tea, still texted me about her daughter failing chemistry. Still asked, has Owen been coming home earlier these days? Like she didn't know anything. You were the one person I thought would never stay silent, Rachel. Pause. I'm sorry, Eve. Truly. I didn't know how to start. It wasn't that I was too angry to speak. It was that I understood. Rachel's silence wasn't from not knowing what to say. It was from choosing not to. She chose to stand on the sidelines, letting me live in the illusion a little longer. 2 days later, I received a yellow envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a stack of blurry printed photos. I flipped through each one, my heart tightening with every turn. Photos of Owen and Jenna skiing at Big Bear. Their hands intertwined, Jenna leaning her head on his shoulder, her cheeks pink from the wind and from happiness. They stood in front of a dark wooden cabin with large glass doors facing a snowy pine forest. I recognized the cabin instantly. I was the one who booked it 3 years ago to celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary. Back then, Owen said he didn't have time to go. He was negotiating a new contract with a partner. I didn't go, thinking I should support him. I even apologized for the last-minute planning. No. I was looking at that same cabin in someone else's hands. In the memory of a new relationship between Owen and the woman he once called a harmless coworker. I sank into the wooden chair on the front porch, the late afternoon light stretching across the deck. Everything inside me shattered into pieces, not because of Owen's betrayal, but because of the quiet deceit from everyone around me. My husband lied. My best friend stayed silent. Co-workers kept it hidden. Neighbors saw it and said nothing. I, the woman who spent her youth building a solid home, was the last to find out I'd been pushed out of it. I no longer knew who to trust or even what to believe. I walked into Harriet Cole's office on a cold weekday morning. The air was chilly, but I didn't feel cold anymore. The numbness had passed. What remained was a silence sharp as a blade, the kind that doesn't come from not knowing what to say, but from knowing exactly what needs to be done. Harriet's office was in a classic red brick building in Midtown, 3rd floor, no flashy sign, just a brass plate that read, Harriet M. Cole, attorney at law, family equity law specialist. She looked to be in her early 60s, silver hair neatly tied back, black-rimmed glasses, a charcoal turtleneck sweater. Her hands were lined with age, but each finger wore a thin metal ring. No excess jewelry, just purpose. Evelyn Blake, right? Have a seat. I read your first email. Honestly, I wish we'd met sooner. I pulled a thick file from my bag and set it on the desk. I don't know everything yet, but I have footage from the camera, credit card statements, transaction records, and... I paused, pulling a separate envelope from my purse. This is the tuition contract I set up when Noah turned 10. We both agreed never to touch the account. But the current balance doesn't match. Harriet opened each document slowly, eyes scanning every line. After about 15 minutes, she nodded. You know, Evelyn, most women walk into this office in total chaos. But not you. You built yourself a case file I wish every client had. I gave a faint smile. I used to be an architect. I don't know how to demolish a marriage, but I do know how to draft a blueprint. And this is my blueprint for an exit. Harriet smiled softly, but her eyes stayed fixed on the screen. I ran Jenna Whitmore's name through the state's investment registry. And I think you'll want to hear this. Just 3 weeks ago, Owen transferred a $500,000 investment into a new joint account, Owen Blake and Jenna Whitmore. I couldn't even react. Harriet continued. That account is tied to a real estate development portfolio on the west side of the city. The same area you and Owen talked about investing in for retirement. Do you still have the original investment contract? Yes. I have the signed original. Good. We'll need to prove it was marital property before the unauthorized transfer. And this. Harriet pulled out a freshly printed statement. Will allow us to file an emergency freeze order. If we don't move quickly, they could flip it to a third party and drain the funds before we get a hand in. I took a deep breath. They already took Noah's tuition money, Harriet. He doesn't know anything yet. I don't want him thinking his dad's a traitor. But I also can't let him lose his future because of adult stupidity. Harriet looked at me, eyes sharp as a scalpel. You're doing exactly what a mother, a wife, and a smart woman should do. You don't need revenge. You need power. That afternoon, I returned home and sat in Owen's office. On the desk was the garden redesign plan he'd wanted for the coming spring. My sketch still lay on top, a small koi pond, rows of lavender along the fence. I opened his laptop and accessed his email. No new password. Still Noah's birthday, an irony that cut deep. I opened each email one by one. Jenna's appointment with the wedding planner, a floral invoice for ivory arrangements, a payment confirmation from Owen's hidden secondary account, photos of her trying on dresses, and a document titled Blake House Wedding Plan. I turned on the printer and printed every single one. I wasn't afraid of the truth anymore. I was using it like paving stones to build myself an exit. One no one would see coming. Noah came home earlier than usual that day. I was in the study, reviewing documents Harriet needed me to sign, when I heard the front door close softly. I looked up and saw my son standing in the doorway, backpack still on his shoulders, his face tense and flushed, like he'd gone through something that shook his world. "Noah? You're home." He didn't answer right away. Just stared at me for a long moment before asking quietly, his voice rough. "Did you know? Dad brought her here, into my room." I stood up and gently pulled out the chair beside me. "What did you hear?" Noah let out a dry laugh, a sound I'd never heard from the boy who used to hum softly while peeling apples with me in the kitchen. "Yesterday I left my laptop at home. I came back to get it and heard Dad on the phone out on the porch. He didn't know I was there." "Jenna said on the call, she'll be gone soon and we'll make this your room." His voice wavered like he was trying to balance between two realities. "My room. Mom, my room. The one with the basketball poster and the moon-shaped nightlight you gave me in 6th grade. She wants to make it hers." I didn't know whether to hold him or stay silent. Neither felt like enough. "What did your dad say?" Noah gripped the straps of his backpack, hands red from how tightly he held on. I stepped out and asked him directly. He panicked, then snapped, "Your mother's poisoning you, Noah. Don't get dragged into her petty revenge." "Revenge?" He breathed hard, eyes red but still looking me straight in the eye. I asked, "And what is she, Dad? A coworker or the woman replacing Mom?" He didn't say anything, slipped behind the wheel and left. I stepped closer and gently slipped the backpack from his shoulders. "Noah, I'm sorry you had to hear it like that. But I don't blame you and I don't need you to pick a side." I opened a drawer and pulled out the file. Photos, statements, transaction records. The ones Harriet once said, "Keep these so your son knows exactly who his father is." I laid each page on the table. Nothing hidden, nothing blurred. "I want you to know the truth." Noah sat down. Each sheet of paper was like a slice, but I couldn't protect him from the wounds caused by the man he once looked up to. "These are screenshots from the door camera. These are their text messages. This is the wedding invoice, paid using your tuition fund. And this is the investment contract that I never signed, but my name was removed from." Noah didn't say anything for a long time. I let him sit quiet beside me like a silent guard. At last he spoke, voice low. "I hate this feeling, Mom. Like everything I thought I knew was fake. I hate doubting Dad. But I'd hate it more if I just closed my eyes and let it go." I turned to him, placed my hand gently on his back, feeling his shaky breath through the thin cotton shirt. "You don't have to hate anyone, Noah. You just need to know who's truly standing with you." He looked at me, eyes no longer questioning, no longer unsure. "You always have been. No matter how clueless I was, you never lied." I gave his shoulder a soft squeeze. "I'm not perfect, but I don't hide the truth. Never." Noah leaned his head on my shoulder like he used to when he was little. We sat that way for a long time in the quiet room that had once been a mother's silent trench. Neither of us needed promises, only presence. The engagement party invitation arrived by express mail exactly 1 week after Noah confronted his father. I didn't have to open it to guess who sent it. Embossed text on ivory paper, "Owen, Jenna, let's celebrate a new beginning." At the bottom, a fancy Italian restaurant downtown, where Owen and I had celebrated our 12th wedding anniversary. A note was attached. "Dear Evelyn, we hope your presence will show that everything has been resolved amicably." Resolved. Amicably. Words chosen like a silk scarf draped over an unhealed wound. But I understood the message. They wanted me to show up, polite, quiet, and defeated. So Jenna could cling to Owen's arm in front of their friends like I was nothing but a faded shadow they'd moved past with grace. I set the card on the table, picked up my phone and texted Harriet, "I'm going. And I want everything brought to light right there." That evening, I wore a black velvet jumpsuit with clean-cut lines. No flashy jewelry, just a pair of white pearl earrings my mother once wore. I walked into the restaurant just as the piano shifted into "At Last." Jenna stood at the center of the room, beaming, hand in hand with Owen. Around them, glasses clinked and congratulations filled the air. I approached the check-in table. "I'm Evelyn Blake. I received an invitation." The hostess hesitated for a beat, then nodded quickly, clearly briefed beforehand. "Yes, of course. They've been expecting you." I didn't tilt my head or walk slowly. I moved straight toward the center of the room, where Owen and Jenna were accepting flowers from an older guest. Jenna spotted me first. "Oh, Evelyn. You really came." She stepped forward, lips bright red, her fitted gown glittering under the golden lights. Her voice was sweet enough to confuse anyone nearby. "You're truly gracious. I know this might be awkward, but we're all adults here, right?" I looked at her for a moment, then turned to Owen. He avoided my eyes. I pulled a thick white envelope from my purse and placed it on the table next to their three-tiered cake. "I'm actually here to return what's fair." I turned, letting my gaze sweep across the crowd. Former friends, neighbors, Owen's business partners. No one raised their glass now. I spoke slowly, clearly. "Inside this envelope is a court order for embezzling funds from my son's college savings. Proof that Jenna Whitmore co-signed a new investment account holding $500,000, taken from joint marital assets. And documentation of property transfers Owen executed behind the back of his legal spouse." Jenna's face went pale. Owen stepped forward, voice lowered. "Evelyn, what are you doing? This is my engagement party." "No. This is your trophy showcase. But you're mistaken. I'm not some forgotten thing. I'm the only one here who still has clarity." I turned to the room. "If anyone here is investing with Owen Blake, or believes this is just a simple love story, I suggest you revisit your statements." The room turned heavy. A few people quietly pulled out their phones. Some whispered to their companions. And right then Noah walked in. I hadn't planned to bring him, but he insisted. And now he stood there, taller, calmer than his 17 years. He looked straight at his father, then at Jenna. "That woman took my mom's place while she was still here. And you let her." Owen opened his mouth but couldn't speak. "I'm not taking sides, Dad. I'm taking the side of the truth." Noah turned to me. "Mom, I think I'm done here." And the two of us walked out, while At Last kept playing in the background. But this time no one felt like dancing. I never waited for an apology from Owen. By that point I no longer needed explanations. Not from him, not from Jenna, and certainly not from those who watched me fall and never reached out a hand. After that engagement party I did one thing. Blocked every point of contact. I changed my phone number. Deleted my old email. Put my attorney Harriet in charge of all legal correspondence. Whatever Owen needed to hear, he'd hear it from her. Whatever I had to say I had already said, publicly, with my son's eyes reflecting the raw truth. 3 days later Harriet called me. "Good news. The judge has approved the supplemental freeze order. It includes all real estate joint accounts and the undivided shares in the investment portfolio." "What about the house?" I asked, my voice calm as if I were asking about the weather. "The villa at 11 West Haven? It's been frozen since this morning. They're prohibited from transferring, modifying, or continuing to use it as a residence as of 9 a.m. I knew Owen was living there. Jenna. In the house I once sketched line by line, chose every wall color, named every flower in the garden. And now they'd have to leave it. Because what I built was never meant to be the backdrop for betrayal. That night I baked almond cookies, Noah's childhood favorite. As I was setting the tray on the table, Harriet's number flashed on my phone again. "Evelyn, I've got something that might make you pour another glass of wine tonight." I put her on speaker, sat down and waited. Jenna Whitmore just left the house. With 2 suitcases. The neighbor reported she called a car around noon. Didn't say a word to anyone. I pressed my lips together, not smiling, letting the quiet settle in my chest. Harriet read Jenna's message to Owen aloud, likely unaware his phone had been under court-monitored backup since last week. "You promised me everything. And you gave me lawsuits." I looked at the clock. 7 p.m. The porch light still on like usual. Noah was sitting in the living room, earbuds in, studying. Outside, spring was slowly arriving. The cherry blossoms near the window had started to bloom. I set my phone down, poured a glass of water and went to check the oven. The scent of toasted almonds filled the kitchen. I left the oven door cracked, letting the warmth drift onto the porch. No need to lock up. No fear of anyone coming back. I moved into the riverside apartment on a clear May morning. The sky was blue, the breeze was light, and no one came to say goodbye. The apartment was a little over 600 square feet. 2 small bedrooms, a balcony facing an old marina. No elevator. No doorman. But morning light streamed in every day, and the gentle lapping of water against the docks sounded like the steady breath of something healing. Noah helped me move in. It took us only 3 rented truckloads to gather everything that truly belonged to us. Books, photos, my baking tools, the sofa I bought back when I was single, and a stack of old blueprints I once thought I'd never use again. Mom, how much of that house was really yours? Noah asked while wiping a picture frame. All the decent parts, sweetheart. I never thought I'd return to work full-time. But one afternoon, reading the paper in a cafe near home, I saw a job posting from a non-profit called Second Shelter, dedicated to building housing for women and children escaping financial abuse and toxic marriages. They were hiring a part-time project architect. Requirements: understanding of healing spaces, preference given to candidates with lived experience. I sent my email at midnight. A week later they replied. After a short interview, the HR director, a woman in her 50s with eyes that understood more than words could say, looked at me and said, "You don't need to prove anything. We need someone like you." Noah also started a summer internship there, helping with media and project data. Every morning, the two of us walked to the metro together. He carried a backpack, I carried lunch. It felt like 15 years ago, except now he was a head taller and always checked if I'd brought my jacket when the wind picked up. I lived simply, carefully, and without rushing. I relearned how to live, not for anyone else, not to prove anything, not to hold on to what had already let go. One afternoon, while sketching a new housing design, kitchens facing herb gardens, each unit with its own path, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar but not entirely strange. I hesitated, then picked up. "Hello." Owen's voice came through, dry but trying to sound warmly familiar. "Evelyn, it's me. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just need one small thing." He continued. "The court has made its ruling. I'm not disputing it. But if you'd consider releasing part of the remaining investment, enough to help me through this phase. Think of it as a gesture of old compassion. Owen, I was the one who believed in you so much I gave up my dreams. I stood beside you when even banks wouldn't trust your name on paper. I was everything you had without ever needing to ask. And now, you're nothing but a lesson. And I never pay twice for the same mistake." I heard him sigh on the other end. The call ended. I deleted the number from my call log. I had no reason left to keep it. That night, Noah boiled corn, made salad, and washed dishes while I adjusted the curve of the porch awning in a digital draft. "Mom, I read a quote today I think you'll like." "Let's hear it." "Freedom doesn't begin when you walk away. It begins when you no longer feel the need to explain why you walked away." I smiled. "That's a good one. I really do like it." Weekend night. The city glittered in the distance like a glowing map, each square of light a separate story unfolding somewhere. A dinner, a date, a heated argument, a whispered love, or maybe just the steady hum of a fan in an empty room. I stood on my apartment's rooftop terrace, a glass of red wine in hand, warmth blooming in my chest. Behind the glass doors, Noah sat on a stool strumming his acoustic guitar. The melody of river flows in you drifted into the night like a silent response to everything that once shattered. I had lost more than I ever imagined. A home, a marriage, best friend, a large part of myself I thought was irreplaceable. And then I found myself again. Not in where I stood but in how I rose. I looked down at my bare feet on the cool cement. Steady. Taken. Not needing to be held. Not afraid of falling. Noah shifted into the chorus. Stronger, clearer, as if he too could feel something closing gently in that small space. Not in words but in the sound of growing up. Of peace after a long storm. I leaned against the railing and inhaled deeply. The chill touched my cheekbones, enough to wake me but not push me back. There was a time I believed that if I wasn't Owen Blake's wife, I wasn't anyone. That title was inseparable from who I was. That role proved I mattered in someone's life. Now I know. My worth doesn't lie in the relationship I once belonged to. It lies in what I no longer allow. I don't stay silent when the truth is loud. I refuse to be treated like I'm disposable. And I won't watch someone build their life on the foundation I poured my heart into, while pretending I was never there. The guitar faded. Noah folded his sheet music and stepped onto the terrace. "Cold out, Mom." "It is. But it doesn't bite anymore." Noah settled beside me, a cup of hot cocoa warming his hands. I glanced at him. The light from inside highlighted one side of his face. Calm, grown. No longer the boy who once asked why adults hide their tears, but someone who now knew tears could be a beginning. Mom, yesterday Miss Wendy at the office told me, a son of a woman like your mother doesn't crumble under failure. She said I get my calm from you. And deep down something became clear. I didn't need to teach my son with grand speeches. He learned from the days I stood up, gathered my documents, walked into court, took the wedding photo off the wall, and refused to fall for promises made by someone who once called me his everything. I swirled the wine in my glass, the deep red reflecting off my fingers. They thought I was the one being replaced, I thought to myself. What they didn't see was, I was the foundation. And they built their lies on sand. A real foundation doesn't need to be glorified. It only needs to be set in the right place. And if someone chooses to tear it down to build something false, then they're the ones who'll collapse first. I looked out at the city. The buildings still stood. But I knew not everything tall is strong. Not everything that glitters lasts. As for me, I don't need to be tall. Or shiny. I just need to be real. And steady. Have you ever been in a place like mine? Where you didn't leave because you were weak, but because you were finally strong enough not to stay. I know every woman faces betrayal in her own way. Some forgive. Some seek justice. Me. I chose to rebuild myself, from the wreckage of what I thought was forever. If you've gone through something like this, or if you want to share your thoughts on Evelyn's journey, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Not to vent, but to let someone out there know, they're not alone. And if you think stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that follow button, so you don't miss the next journeys, of family, of choices, and of how those who were once knocked down, rose stronger than ever.